Hello and greetings one and all. We are Matt McCoy's Sustainable Science class, and we're here to talk to you about the Real Food Challenge. The Real Food Challenge is a campaign that was started in 2006 that ultimately seeks to shift $1 billion of existing university food budgets away from junk food and away from industrialized farms and more towards sustainable, local, ecologically friendly food sources. And yeah, it was started in 2006. It's still a really small campaign. It's only 22 employees. It's a nonprofit, 12 of which are volunteers. And yeah, I'm going to hand it off to Sam now. She's going to talk a little bit more about what it is and why the campus might want to do it.
So all across the country, schools have been incorporating a Real Food Challenge into their dining hall plan. And we created this map for you guys to kind of give you a visual of what it looks like.
So all of the red dots you see are cities that have been investigating and looking into having the Real Food Challenge put into their school. And that's agreeing to put 20% of real food into your system by 2020. And all of the gold stars are schools that have committed to have at least 20%, if not more. There are some that have 30 and 40% by 2020. So Farmington's a little red dot right now, and our goal is to hopefully make it a star.
Now, Matt is going to talk about some of the specific ways that we can do that.
On the Real Food Challenge website, there's a whole host of different worksheets and information that you can use to build this Real Food Challenge campaign. One of them that I really like is this Real Food Challenge campaign strategy worksheet. So you can set down what you see, communicate between us, like what we want to do, and then hopefully by the end of spring, we'll have reached that spring goal. And by halfway through the mid-year, then we reach that mid-year goal. And then another great thing of the Real Food Challenge is this progress report. On here in another school, it's given 4 actual jobs to students, so they've used that real life experience. So they have that real life experience so they can go on and apply that somewhere else. And also there's a 35% purchase of compliant real food with the Real Food Challenge, and they got this using the real food calculator that Jackie will talk about for us.
Hi. So the Real Food Calculator is a tool that's on their website, and it lets you track purchasing information from your school. So how that works for us is you go onto the website, and there's a little toolbar at the top where you click calculator, and you go and you sign up, and it's pretty easy. It requires an on-the-phone training, but it's pretty simple. And then once you get that all set up, you take a spreadsheet from Airmark that says like what we get and where we get it, and you upload it onto the calculator, and it tells you like how local it is, like how sustainable it is, and all these different things, like how humane and stuff. And then over time, as you work with the Real Food Challenge, they help you get local foods and like real foods or whatever. And at the end, you get like the progress report in the form of this thing called an active assessment, which is another tool. Basically tells you how far you've come, like what you can improve in, and what you're doing good in. And now Sebastian's going to talk about why Airmark would want to do this with us.
So one thing that we've noticed is that a lot of students want more real food or more sustainable food on campus. But one of the questions is, why would Airmark want to do this? So by having more local sustainable foods, maybe they could have better quality service, more delicious and more fresh foods. And then another incentive for them is that the food could also become cheaper, or they could provide like a better quality for like less expense to them. And they could do that by producing more things in-house or buying more with the seasons. And we see examples of that. Yale Dining Services, they make their own salad dressing, hummus, flavored cream cheese, and their own salad mix. Wheaton College uses local milk to produce their own sour cream and yogurt. Wesleyan College makes fresh pesto and basil is in season, which is really cool. And then Another thing that we thought was important was that Aramark could show students how much they care about the food they're producing by showing students, like making a really transparent process and showing students that, look, we're committing to making 20% of our food or however much of our food real and local, which we value and they will also value. Could also improve town-gown relationships among farmers such as Sandy River Farms, Rustic Roots, Marble Family Farm, is that right? Yeah. So some of the local farms and the campus. So we think those are all important things that Aramark can do to also with the Real Food Challenge. So now if you guys have any questions or anything, we'd like to answer those. And also there's cider and apples if you guys want that. So I think you should definitely have some of that, and then maybe get some cider and a snack, and then we can all just kind of talk and have that go on. So.
Okay. I mean, anybody can really answer this, but I guess the Real Food Challenge, what did they define as real food? Like, is it local? Is it sustainably harvested? What is their definition of real food?
They used the 150 miles, I think. Was that it?
For the local part.
For the local part.
Yeah.
The local part was 150 miles radius with
Yep.
the area where it's grown. Yeah.
Yep.
But real.
Sorry,
go ahead.
yeah, you can go.
No.
Okay. So has anybody like talked to Andy about this, or have you guys like brought this to Aramark yet, or is this just like in the works of like what you'd like to do?
We wanted to open it up with just presenting it to you guys.
Yeah.
And then if things went well and like we had more like cooperation and backing with it, we wanted to invite the president, Aramark people, we wanted to invite like Fooding Club, like a bunch of other campus clubs that would like help with it.
Yeah.
But we wanted to like make sure like if it's something that we should do, we want to invite you guys first.
Yeah, well, so it's extremely realistic, I think, in this aspect, because we're already, so like, I work with Andy for the SCC, so I work with Aramark through the SCC to bring us local foods to campus. So I kind of know like a lot about this already, and I think it's really interesting. And so we've just started working with Crown of Maine, which brings in more like local farms to us. So we're like buying from distributors who buy from local farms. So we're already kind of starting this process. And it'd be really interesting if we got these guys on board to help us, type of thing. So we're already like working towards this, and I think everybody like in the system would be cool with it. My thoughts on that. Interesting.
Yeah, Andrew. Did you have something?
No, go ahead. Finish your thought first.
Andrew Hutchins, so the number for local buying right now at Aramark, 25%.
But that's not a real number.
So, yeah, it's not a real number, and the reason it's not a complete number is that includes, it's 150-mile radius, and it includes
Coca-Cola.
out of state, and it also includes food distributors, so it includes like Coca-Cola, Farmington. And so one of the things that's been recognized by numerous groups of people is we need to actually like divide those numbers out, just look at local food suppliers, and take distributors out of the mix, and then what percentage would we have? And it's undoubtedly going to be probably closer between, I don't know, 10 to 15% or something. But I highly doubt that it would be above 20. So I think the 20% mark would be realistic once we divide out the distributors. It's just something to think about, and maybe you guys already know that. Yeah.
There's, I guess, one thing. I don't know if, I mean, a lot of you probably have meal plans and stuff, and Lauren has done a lot of work with Aramark, and one of the things that she's done is put our logo over a lot of the stuff. So if you see something that says SCC with our logo stamped on it, and it's basically a logo over the local food over the food means that something is sustainably harvested or part of it is locally grown. So I mean, that's definitely one thing. We definitely want to publicize what is being brought into the dining hall that's local, and I think that like joining with the Real Food Challenge might help us because it gives us like a good organization to back us up, and it's kind of bragging rights, like Aramark, oh, we're working with the Real Food Challenge. And not a lot of colleges are doing it. I mean, it's still pretty small, so it definitely like says something about the university if we participate. What's the situation if we join? Is there potential for us to like link up with USM and other schools in the UMaine system?
What do you mean by link up?
Like, if we decide that we want to go with this, is there like a possibility that we can collaborate with other universities in the UMaine system to do
Like to
this
get
together? Like
at the system level?
Yes.
Like all UMaine
well,
systems
because
schools
all of the UMaine schools except for Orono are with Aramark by contract, and I think that it's nice to get consistency
Yep.
within the universities.
I think, yeah. So that's a good point. You guys know that their Aramark's contract for the UMaine system is at its end next year. So there's definitely a relevance, and obviously you all recognize that, but if this was to be rolled into a new proposal for food services at 6 of 7 campuses, the only one that has their own food service is UMaine Orono, so the main Orono has its own food service. But this would be a way to say, we would love whoever the new contractor is to adopt these benchmarks for goals with local buying or real food buying. So, and I think there'd be strong, I think there would be strong support for that.
And maybe could you even say, and to track those in a way that, track progress to those benchmarks in a way
Yes.
similar to or including the Real Food Challenge, which helps kind of make that transparent and easily
Yes.
available.
Yeah, I mean, the transparency thing is interesting because there's lots of classes asking for data from Aramark on this campus.
Yeah.
Many classes, many groups. And so I think it's also important to recognize that we also have to respect the contractor and the contract that they are working under. And so I think we want transparency, but we just want to make sure that we're building support, that Aramark is willing to give the numbers, because under that contract, they may not be required to do that. They may be recommended or.
So this is an advantage in that way,
Yes.
in that they can kind of get out in front
Yes.
of all these multiple requests coming to them and do it in a more orderly way, I think.
Yeah.
You got it.
Me first?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is really for anybody, but I know me and Sebastian kind of talked about this yesterday, how like, especially depending on what you buy locally, you can certainly save money, especially if it's in season. But like, did you guys crunch any number at all to sort of see like, especially since we're in like a system-wide deficit, like how much you would save if you did incorporate this?
That could be really compelling.
Yeah, I think it would all depend on how much you're participating in it. Like,
Yeah, because I mean, if there was a big incentive to save,
Yeah.
that would obviously get them more on board.
And the constraints of the contract would probably influence that, right? Because right now, Aramark is kind of off the books. So I think, yeah.
What do you mean by off the
Doesn't-
books?
Well, it doesn't affect so when we talk about a deficit at UMF, we talk about the E&G budget, which is kind of our operational expenditures, but that doesn't
Oh, so
include.
like a separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't,
Yeah, that doesn't
there's no
include it.
effect.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately, it probably would be more expensive to go with local foods. I think that's the reality. There may be some situations where it would be cheaper, but in general, it's gonna be more.
But
Um,
But there's a window there, because I think that if the demand is enough for those local foods, which can sometimes have its like positive and negatives, because there are students who will eat pizza every day, every meal of every day if they can, and so that we have to kind of be serious and realistic when we have these conversations with Aramark, because if we say like we want all local foods, we're all in, and then we get like a lot of local beets and nobody eats them, it's like a waste of money. So we really have to like pinpoint what we want that's local. And like you said, you made comparisons with other universities, like Yale's making their own hummus and stuff. It's kind of like, what small changes can we make right now that are practical, things that students will use and they won't go to waste? Because I think if we just kind of go all into local food and then we have products that just really don't sell, then Aramark's going to be a little bit more reluctant to participate with us in the future. So I think it's just being practical and thinking from an economic perspective, because that's a lot of where they're coming from, is they see it in terms of dollar signs. So you really have to, what the students want and what's economically feasible for Aramark to contribute.
I do want to get back to the conversation we were having a few minutes ago, which is coordination on campus. So most of you may be aware that next semester there is one of these collabs, which is focused on food. And so every collab, you probably know, involves several courses, and there's some project. And the project of that collab is to improve the food at UMF. So I think we need to figure out some way to coordinate everything. I think it would be a mistake to for you guys to go to Aramark and say, we want to do a real food challenge, and then for another course to go and say, we want to work on this, and then the collab to say, oh, we're working on trying to improve. We need to figure out, I don't know, I don't have a solution, but some way to coordinate. I mean, what you guys are doing sounds like the most practical and most effective approach I've heard of. I think it's terrific. It's fantastic. But how do we
But I think the
fold
sense
it
amongst
into
students was that it was more than a class could do. And so we had a conversation about who on campus had kind of multi-semester, presence and could coordinate, and that's why we're here, because we thought SCC sort of fit that function.
So maybe it doesn't make sense to bring it to Aramark yet.
Well, right, so we
maybe
thought.
Maybe it makes sense to next semester continue this work, and when the collab is going on, to have other groups work on it and coordinate, and then come to Aramark with a real fleshed out proposal that you guys have started already.
We wanted to add, you're Lauren then?
Yeah.
So we felt like, it sounded like you were probably the best position to kind of assess what would work with, in terms of Aramark's schedules and interests and so forth.
Yeah, I think that there has been a huge push, I don't think it, I know it, for local foods on campus. And so then there's also this push of well, Aramark's contract's gonna run up here pretty soon, and they're sort of trying to make these changes. And so we've seen it already with Andy trying to buy from Crown, Crown of Maine, buys from Native Maine type of thing. And I was just with him the other day, and he was like, well, we bought this, we could get this from Crown Royal, but man, this stuff is way too expensive for what we want. And so I think he's working towards it, and he's in the beginning stages of it too. And if this kept going, I think it would be better to bring it next semester type of thing. Definitely not right now, but with the food thing, what Drew was saying, trying somehow to get it all under one umbrella instead of all these different things going on. And that's interesting if we could all sit down and talk about how we could do that.
But I think that will be part of the collab next semester. That's the idea.
Brilliant, yeah.
I think is to bring it, I guess. I mean, we don't really know.
Who's
but I
doing
guess
the
that's the idea.
collab?
We're working on it.
Wendy Harper is the coordinator of it. And so my assumption is there will be campus-wide.
But Drew's involved, I'm involved,
Yeah,
Luke is involved.
The SEC is involved. You guys are involved now. Whether you
Yeah.
like it or not. Yeah.
Did you guys in your research, so one of my questions is, of all these schools, what percentage of these schools look like UMF?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
So we have a lot of private schools jumping on board very exuberantly. They have budgets to do this, and it's no skin off their back. What public universities do it, and what small liberal arts schools, a part of a larger public university system, do it? And I think that would be interesting to know who else is in a similar situation like UMF. Because comparing to Yale and McAllister and Colby, and that only goes so far. I think there is as a public university, we have different constraints, and I think we need to recognize that with the Real Food Challenge.
When we were making this map, we went in and individually typed in every school that was looking into it, and there were a lot of public universities. I know right off the top of my head, UMass Amherst is doing it. I believe, quite a few in Massachusetts. Not so much in Maine, but there were a lot of public universities that were investigating in it.
So the STAR, is that?
The STAR is College of
Is
the
that
Atlantic.
COA?
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
And so the dots, they don't just represent individual schools, it represents the city. So that dot could represent 5 different schools. Like in Boston, there's one dot there, but there's several different schools in Boston that have been participating.
So at this point, there were 126 towns with, or cities with the university in 168
Yeah.
different schools, right?
Yeah.
And 40-something have made a commitment. So that just means, the red dot just means they're actively tracking, using the calculator, their progress. But it doesn't mean that the institution has made a commitment yet to 40% local foods by 2015 or whatever.
Yeah, I would say the other piece for the Real Food Challenge is UMF is worried about its enrollments.
Yes.
And to what degree could the Real Food Challenge bring students here?
Yes. And that's a now issue. It's not a like, let's get started next semester issue. Like, that's really crucial.
I mean, we know food is a reason to leave campus, to move off
Yeah.
campus, but to what degree is a good food service, dining service with this commitment to real food? What is your thoughts about attracting students? Do they want to go either Orno or UMF, but they choose UMF because they're really excited about the food? I mean, I think that's an important thing to know.
I think this is a good media opportunity
Yeah.
for us. Like we have connections, like the SCC has personal connections with a lot of the local media. So it would be a good opportunity, like we could maybe see if we could get an interview out there or like talk to the Sun Journal, just any little thing that we could do to kind of publicize, like we're kind of starting a movement here and we really want to promote that because I think this is a good thing that we're trying to put into place, and if other like areas found out about it, I think it would bode well for UMF as a whole, because I think people care. Like bad food was the #1 reason I moved off campus. Like it was the one reason, because I was forced to get a meal plan and live on campus and eat crappy food, so I moved. I didn't want to do it anymore. But like I think that they've made a lot of progress since then, because they've seen a need for it, and I think they're still willing to make progress with us. But I think getting like attention from media sources or whatever and linking up would be really beneficial to like get, because it could help enrollment. I mean, what's to say, like you have no idea that how much attention you'll get until you try.
It's just a general question. Is this for like institutions or is it just for like universities? So like do hospitals do this too, or big things, or is it just universities?
I feel like it included a bunch of things,
I
right?
feel like it's universities for now, but I could see it moving into other.
We saw some pizza shops and restaurants that.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Yeah.
some institutions like hospitals too. Yeah,
So
'cause
individual
one of the,
businesses.
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
places
because
where we were
we're-
entering them were like
yeah,
hospitals and
they were
businesses,
different.
and we kept those
Okay.
Those aren't included in
Yeah,
that, just universities are.
Yeah.
Right.
But-
And we still have that list, so we can easily like
It's right
put
on
in
the
public or
website,
private,
too.
and then just like go from there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess my question is like, what is the like, so you don't have to pay to use this program or anything, and it's just like, so they're like what you said, just nonprofit, small program.
We met one of the guys at the conference, and
Yeah.
he's so cool. Like he's so
Yeah.
nice. And he was talking to us and Tyler Kidder, who has Luke's job at USM, and he had a lot of information to give us. And I think like even just asking him to come at some point over the course of the year would be really helpful to like get like what can we do? What's the
Yeah.
first thing, like first order of business to get started with this? But what can we do now, I guess, if like we are interested, what are the first steps that we can take now? And I mean, anybody, if you have suggestions, but I know getting other clubs involved would be helpful, but like what's the first step here if we say that we're interested?
I think the first thing you do is just take a look at the site. Like, it just has so many resources on the site. We were kind of like blown away because the way they set it up, it has like we were saying, like different aspects of like the campaign or like how to use the calculator, how to do all this stuff, and they have like pre-made stuff for you. So like if you want to make a poster, like we're having a meeting for whatever, for this campaign, you literally can just put your name or name of university in it, and it's pretty much ready to go.
They have templates for everything.
Yeah, like that's a template. That's just like an example.
Yeah.
They have like templates like that.
But I think you also need to tip off Andy. Like I think your I would not want that to sort of move forward without you tipping off Airmark and you know, trying to figure out ways that Airmark could be out in front of that. So what I think the question for him is, I think it is, and there's a little PowerPoint that steps through the process, but I think it's, can he provide velocity reports in an Excel format that can be uploaded through the calculator?
Into an active assessment.
Into
And
an
then it does
active
everything.
And, well,
Absolutely.
but there has to be a conversation too about these different ways that UMF's food system would be tracked at that point.
Yeah.
One is local, but one is ecologically sound, and one is humane, and there's another one that I'm forgetting. So there's like 4 different, you know, characteristics of the food system, and I think there needs to be a campus conversation about, you know, do we use 150 miles? Do we agree that that's what's important in terms of where producers are located? Or is there more openness because Crown and Main sources from Aroostook County and places that might be further away? But I don't know that we want to leave those out.
Yeah.
So I think the campaign is where people could have that kind of broad-based conversation, but I wouldn't want that to get out of sync with Airmark. But I also really think it's important to get started kind of quick because of the contract timeline. In other words, if this all kind of starts to gel in like April and May, I think we may have missed the boat.
That's not when it's gonna happen,
Oh.
apparently. Because remember we heard what Tyler said?
What's going on?
So first they're hiring a
Oh, yeah.
a food consultant first.
Food consultant.
And that person will be on this spring, and that person's job is to figure out how to then develop a proposal that will go out that Aramark and other companies can bid on. I know it sounds really weird. And that won't happen until summer, fall. And then the decision probably will be made by December.
Right, but to influence the RFP, like this stuff has to be in place.
Yeah, this spring will work,
Yeah,
should
this
work.
spring.
Because I don't think the RFP will go out till, that was my understanding.
Yeah, I don't think the RFP will go out till
Till
summer,
summer.
probably.
So one of the starting points is that you would start, you need to have a baseline. So you start, the minimal period is usually 3 months that they would track the food system in order to establish that baseline. They would prefer you to spend a year because of seasonality and so forth, tracking the baseline that you're using to measure your progress going forward. So having it ready to set up, so you don't want to include December, and you may not want to include January. So it needs to be ready to go like February 1, I believe, or January 15th. But these are all questions then for the organizer, who I think will come and visit. You know him.
I've met him. Yeah, I mean he's very interested in the humane system RFP and trying to. A lot of people in the state are hearing about this and interested about this. Some are talking about the Real Food Challenge, but some are just local farmers are wondering what's going to happen. Right, all these suppliers. So everyone's kind of watching. I mean, I would say also for Andy, it'd be interesting to know. Aramark must be contracted at schools where this has already been happening. I would make the.
Oh, yeah.
So remember, he is not an employee of UMF, he's an employee of Aramark Corporation. So knowing what Aramark, the corporation, is doing when they get requests from all over the country, and maybe there's already something in place within the Aramark corporation that is like, oh yeah, like we're doing this in 8 states right now, and it's not going to be such maybe quite the sell we think it is, and maybe there's more community. I don't know.
But I think you brought up a really good point that maybe we lost in there a little bit, and that is, Lauren, you should probably make sure that Andy is aware that this is going on. So he's not like suddenly like, what? Out of the blue.
Everybody wants a piece of Andy, right?
I know.
Well, no, not like, just tell him.
Yeah.
Here's what's going on.
Yeah, and he's usually,
I just want you to know.
He's like a really, really receptive guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very like open to things and happy and nice and kind. So it's not like will shut it down. And he's very realistic about things too. So I'm making notes.
We've been really lucky.
Yeah.
With our food representatives for dining services, like I guess before we had Patrick
who was also
from Aramark,
was very supportive. And
like
came to these
we get
meetings.
really good receptive people in our food services, and I think that that we tend to ignore that sometimes. But especially when, you know, we complain about the quality of the food and stuff, and I know Ariel knows him pretty personally, but like he's really nice and he's really receptive, and I think that having this conversation, like we're talking about something that he already knows and he cares about, so it's kind of nice because I feel like a lot of the time we're preaching to the choir.
He's totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the person at the top and their ability to work with students in the campus, I mean, that personality is super important.
Yeah.
We could have somebody that's much more standoffish, divisive. No, I'm not even going to do that. But we have somebody right now that's very receptive and flexible. And also the UMaine system has been with Aramark for 30 years straight. Aramark wants to stay. Andy Hutchins wants to stay. It's in their best interest to stay. And if Real Food Challenge is what the students want, and that's the other thing is when students talk, people listen. The campus listens a lot more than the faculty talk.
Yeah.
Incidentally. So if you guys say something, it's amazing. Then I think Aramark's going to say, this is what UMF wants, and we're willing to go there.
And I think if we decide to do this, there are a lot of different people that we can reach out to. Like I know you mentioned like food and club and health club would probably be good for this too.
Huge list.
CRC would be perfect because they
would.
have access to all the people in the residence halls. Getting in touch with like CAs. And just, I mean, getting a hold of clubs, I think, are the first step, and then we have a really big united front, and then we can kind of, students will be more receptive to join in on this kind of movement if they see CRC is behind this, food and clubs behind this, Sustainable Campus Coalition's behind this, like a couple of classes are working on it. I think it grows a little bit better if you get a club, and I think you coming here was probably the best approach because you're, like I said, preaching to the choir because we care and you're talking to people who genuinely care about the same thing that you're talking about. But we have representatives from a bunch of different clubs, like Luis is president of Food and Club, so I think it's really good leeway for us.
Have you guys already started a campaign on the website or anything? Or signed up?
Oh, I signed up for the calculator, but that was me personally signing up in order to see what are the next steps.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first step was filling out a survey, and a lot of that was selecting drop-down boxes. Who's your food service provider? Of course, Aramark is listed because it's one of the big ones.
Yeah.
But that was, it was probably 10 minutes of activity on my part. And then you get to this point where it stops you and it says, before you go any further, do this 5-minute phone conversation or 15-minute phone conversation with the organizer. Who mentioned that? One of you guys. Yeah, Jackie mentioned that that's the next step. So one of the things I think to decide, maybe in this meeting, is do people push it a little further? Have that conversation, have that little block taken off, go a little further, and then go to Andy with more specific information about what would really be the requirements for in terms of the structuring of these Excel spreadsheets that they upload. Or do you not worry about that and just maybe there's, I was thinking that maybe, is there a meeting that's called with the Food and Club? I don't know what the sort of next step is. I think I'm hearing Drew sort of suggesting that the collab kind of picks up some of the energy next semester.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of feeling that's good, the collab should be part of that, but I wouldn't want to lose momentum kind of saying, oh, we'll do it next semester.
Yeah.
Could we reach out to the coordinator, the regional coordinator?
Yeah.
And
Is
have
that
him
something
come here,
SCC would make most sense to do? Maybe more? Or
Yeah, I would love to
have
do
him
it.
come here.
I'm not gonna be here next semester, which is kind of bumming me out, but because I think it would be something that if we started it this semester and people knew, we all knew in this room, we're doing the Real Food Challenge by the end of this semester, and then next semester, make sure, I'm sure we'll all be spread out between different things, like the collabs and the SCC, and if you're still doing this class.
But I think establishing it.
Yeah,
now.
Establishing it now is definitely important, what you said, so we don't lose momentum in it. But I think a main goal should be we should be signed up for it by the end of the semester.
Right.
Would you wanna talk to Andy about it, like, next week?
Yeah.
Just like,
Be
when you,
fine.
when you meet with him, just kinda be like, this is what we talked about last week,
Yeah.
and this could potentially, and just see what he says, and like the receptiveness that he feels for, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because he can check out the website too.
And then we can give him progress, like, you just kinda let him know now, and then we can take the next few steps after you talk to him, and then we can give him, like, gradual updates as we go.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, if you want to meet with him, or you are gonna meet with him next week,
Yeah.
let us know what you want, and we can try to see, like, what we did present, and we have, like, on computers or whatever, that we can put together and give to you, so you have more information to bring to him.
That'd be great. I meet with him on Wednesday.
Right.
So if we meet on Mondays at this time too, so if any one of you would like to come on Monday to give me any of that information that you'd want Andy to have, type thing.
Yeah, I
that'd
mean,
be
any of
wonderful.
you are welcome to come, we meet the same time on Mondays, same place. So like, if you wanna come and kind of participate in this discussion and stuff, it would definitely be welcomed, definitely.
And Lauren, I would ask him to talk internally within Aramark and the higher ups about this too.
Yeah, that was
about,
one of
like,
the keynotes.
okay, there has to be a process probably, so how
Yeah.
do we initiate that within Aramark itself?
I like.
You know, or is it really,
Yeah.
really up to Andy
Yeah.
if he does this or not, or is there really more of a chain of command? I hate to use that, but.
Yeah, well, I feel like Andy's question is gonna be like, well, how does this benefit us type of deal? Like if we're already trying to do this, but this just sets like an actual goal, correct? Like instead of,
I think there's tracking, there's monitoring,
Yeah.
there's transparency, which is the
benefit.
stuff, which is really what we don't quite have now.
Right, so if Andy, it's great that he wants to source from Crown and Main and use local suppliers, but that only helps Aramark if the students on campus and off campus know about that.
yeah.
And so a student movement or campaign is the way, I think, to really get the word out. So he can kind of maximize the publicity by taking advantage of the kinds of, strategies that you were talking about, from sending out a press release that says, now 20% of our food is from here. And by the way, it's also humane and ecologically sound. And we know that because it's being tracked
Yeah,
through
that's,
the active assessment process. So I don't know. I think there's a big upside for Aramark and for the campuses. For the campus, because of the potential for kind of squelching this, for the idea that people run away from campus because of Aramark.
Yeah.
I think it's good. And we had kind of discussed, I know we're gonna talk a little bit more about it on Monday, but we wanna do, we're kind of at a lull this semester, like all of our events have been done and planned, and
Except for next week.
we're kind of looking for, except for the forum.
Energy forum.
But right now we're kind of looking to see what we can do for the rest of the semester to kind of keep busy and keep a presence. And one of the things that we talked about was just regular tabling, just tabling in the student center. Maybe come up with like a theme every week to get like information to the students. Just like sit out on the beach and kind of say, today we're going to talk about local food. You can come over and I think that this might be a good opportunity for us to educate the student population and just kind of like just have that be one of our topics of the week that we table and give information to the students if we can get like brochures or something.
Yeah,
something small.
All that stuff is on there.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
there's a little guide to tabling that's really cool.
I was just looking at
It's
it.
awesome.
But I'm just thinking maybe that could be like a theme that we do for one of the Wednesdays that we table.
Yeah, I think, okay, so also this relates to us, and I think this would be something really good to share with you, Luke. So this, on their little website, so after years with Sodexo, the University of Vermont is opening up their contract for new bidders. After some serious research, the advocacy efforts by the Real Food Working Group on campus, badass real food focused language got put into the university's desired specs. So they said, ... this isn't like what they want, ... mandates that whatever company takes over, they hit the university's commitment to 20% real food before 2020. Provide invoices for the calculator in digital format, offer culturally diverse food offerings, provide complete transparency on rebates from Big Food.
I have a copy of that. from Vermont, from UVM,
Nice.
which could be a good template for us.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It is cool.
Some schools did 30%, 35%, 40% too.
Yeah. Awesome.
Nobody's really cracked 40% as far as I know. That is like the
It's good to have goals.
right?
And it will depend on what part of the country you're located in.
California.
If you're in California, you probably can get a lot higher.
That's if it keeps raining and there's snow.
We could get a lot of local potatoes.
Already got that, right?
You can do a lot with potatoes.
Well, yeah, you can, exactly.
The amount of French fries we make.
But like, yeah, we just, local French fries, woo.
I just thought of this. I mean, next week we're doing this energy forum, which is basically energy kind of choices and development on campus and in the community. And I just thought to myself, local food buying or real food buying could be another reason for a campus community discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And we invite people like the Homestead, the Snack Shack, we invite the hospital, we invite Andy. And it's not just local buying on campus, but it's, let's talk to all the business owners too, right? It's bigger than just this campus and the university. So this idea of like supporting local buying and real food, we could actually bring in, which is what we're kind of doing with energy next week. We're having homeowners come in, and we're having businesses, and we're having, and so it builds the support for what we're doing on campus, but it also puts a little pressure on all of these restaurant owners too. Like, hey, you can actually buy tomato paste and tomato sauce, you know.
Well, I mean, just like anything that we do here, like bridging that gap between the university and like local businesses and farms is, again, another community discussion.
So it could be a good, or maybe early next semester even, like a local.
Or even the farmers roundtable that we had a couple of years
It's sort
ago.
of, yeah, and then.
We did that and it was great because I didn't know how many farms were in the vicinity, and it was like we met all of them, like met the owner of the farm, and it was just a big discussion. Everybody just kind of, they gave a spiel about what they do at their farm. They kind of talked about the complications with like providing food, and it was really informative. I had no idea like some of the struggles that some of them go through to provide food for the community, and I think the students don't really know how much is out there. And I mean, the people who really care, they look into this stuff, they research it, but I think that like kind of putting it in their face, like students need to kind of, they need to see like, this is how many farms are here, and we're not really utilizing them to their full potential. And some of them are really big, like Sandy River Farm is kind of notorious, like we get a lot of stuff donated from them, but like, I think that there are other, like Rustic Roots is kind of just up and coming, and we want to support that. So I think getting the students to be aware of it and just kind of being like, well, we need to take care of these little guys because they're struggling too, and the university has the funds, if we use them wisely, to help them out.
Other comments or questions?
When is your class? Like, when do you meet?
Thursday, what time?
11:50.
What time?
9:50 to 11:30.
I know, so do I.
Well, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
The discussion has
Thank
been
you.
very interesting.
Thank you. So we've got students who will be like a connection, like Tim, right? And then we're going to try and marshal some of the stuff that we've done, pull it together, and hand some of it off. And then we'll have a discussion about what kind of level of involvement some of these students would want to have in the things you were talking about going forward.
Yeah.
You're going to tip off Andy.
Next week.
And, you know, there's some questions I have about the calculator. Paul's just brought up the question about, you know, how you would sort of enter your own thresholds or own kind of indicators in the real food calculator to adjust it to allow Aroostook County, for instance, suppliers to count as local.
Why don't they just say like the state of Maine and 150 miles?
Yeah, I think you can do that, I'm just not sure like technically how.
Well, my point was simply that one of the reasons for buying local, there's two main reasons. One is economy, and the other one is how much energy it takes to get your food there. If you look at the calculations for how much energy it takes to bring food from places, it turns out to be a pretty small fraction of the total energy involved in the production of food, but it's still a factor. And so distance is one of those things. But I think considering how it affects the economy of the local economy, I think is very important too. So that's all. I'm just saying you probably need to make the criteria local, just as the food is local.
Yeah. It's, and I think it's an adaptable tool that can do that, just not 100% sure how exactly that's done. But it'd be really good to know, and it'd be good to know because it might impact Airmark's willingness to participate. So I think the other things we want to do as a class is scan through that list and find other Airmark schools. That's a big thing. And that could be helpful, again, for you by Wednesday to know what other Airmark schools. So Andy's then armed and knows who to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that sound good? Sounds good. We've got a bag full of apples. Can we, we'll leave some with you guys, but I'm gonna grab some.